Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So, an interesting rumor and fodder that's out there right now. It doesn't have to do with the Miami Heat's backup plan of going to DeMar DeRozan. I know that's kind of got every Heat fan's hair standing up in the back of their neck. I think I've done the DeMar DeRozan Plan B thing already, but if you guys are just tuning in here, I'll give my thoughts on it again. DeMar DeRozan's a fine player. It's nothing against having DeMar DeRozan on the Miami Heat. I know he just did D-Wade's podcast recently. A lot of respect for him, future Hall of Famer. To me, just getting DeMar DeRozan, it is one of those things where, while I think on its face looks like, hey, that could help the Heat having a go-to guy. Clutch numbers usually really good for DeMar DeRozan, prolific scorer. From my standpoint, there's just a difference in going and getting somebody like Kevin Durant, not only because of accolades and what he's still able to do at his age. But I do think that there is just an injection of life into the franchise that would come with that, especially for Bam Adebayo and especially for Tyler Hero. And it's nothing against DeMar DeRozan. They went down this road with getting Kyle Lowry on Jimmy Butler. Like, Kyle Lowry was a perfectly fine fit for a couple of seasons there with the Miami Heat. But was it the splashiest trade that the Heat would have needed in that time? No. I mean, most people look at that and be like, oh, that one doesn't do anything for me. So I think the DeRozan thing, it just feels like a move to make a move. And it's not even like DeMar DeRozan makes crazy money. He's making 25 this year, or just under 25 this year, a little over 25, actually just under 26 million next year. So it's not awful, but it's also just like, what are you doing it for? Like, are you bringing in DeMar DeRozan? Do you really think that takes you up a level as a team? Because his teams have been pretty pedestrian, with a lot of those other teams making that move in adding DeMar DeRozan with Zach LaVine, with the Chicago Bulls, and then somehow it ends up the same with the Kings too. And while there were games where DeMar DeRozan cooked the Heat's ass, has done a great job against Miami, from my standpoint, I just think that that's one of those moves that's not only a move just to make a move, but it feels just a little bland and lifeless. And I've seen some criticism about, the Miami Heat just doing the Kevin Durant thing for fan buzz or to sell jerseys. I've seen scouts who have critiqued anybody who's trading for Kevin Durant is just trying to sell jerseys. And while I can't deny that the Miami Heat marketing department is probably salivating at having a legend walk into their building and being able to sell, 35 Vice jerseys, I also just think that there's also a palpable buzz within your franchise. What was it? The report that Ethan has, that wasn't a surprise, that Spo's got a lot of weight behind the Kevin Durant move too. And so, I think Spo would give a lot of respect to DeMar DeRozan because there's been great respect for him. He's had a lot of success against Miami in the past. He's beaten Miami in a playoff series before. It just falls a little flat. Now, there is an interesting trade that is floating around the ether, and I saw this clip put up on Heat Reddit, but it comes from the Odyssey radio station in Sacramento, ESPN Sacramento. The show is called The Insider Show with James Ham and Kyle Madsen on 1320 ESPN Sacramento. And so there is a lot of buzz going around right now in Sacramento that they are going to have a first-round pick. They don't have a first-round pick. Their first-round pick belongs to Atlanta. And there was apparently some buzz that the Sacramento Kings are telling folks that DeMar DeRozan, that the Kings are going to have a pick in the 20s, the early 20s. Well, we all know where the Miami Heat select. They select 20. So there was a proposed trade or some rumblings of a proposed trade out in Sacramento that did make me stop and pause a little bit, because they were sitting here suggesting, would the Heat just do a Jaquez Robinson combination straight up for DeMar DeRozan? So essentially, you're getting DeMar DeRozan for a guy in Duncan Robinson, who, we all know the contract situation that he's in. It's expiring. You're giving Jaquez, who's a pretty depreciated asset at this point, and you're getting DeMar DeRozan, some infusion of offense onto your team. But now that this new wrinkle's out there with the pick, they were saying, what if the rumblings were DeMar DeRozan and Devin Carter for Jaime Jaquez, Duncan Robinson, and the 20th overall pick? So essentially, you're getting in your infusion of veteran presence with DeMar DeRozan, but you're also getting Devin Carter on the team, who we know the Miami Heat had interest in last year. I think Devin Carter, if I go back to last year's draft prep, I would venture to say Devin Carter was probably the most popular target amongst Heat fans. And, for those who don't know, Devin Carter out of Providence was a 4-year college player, combo guard. He is 6'2" with a 6'9" wingspan. He he is the son of former Miami Heat assistant coach Anthony Carter, Miami Heat player Anthony Carter. So this is a guy who played. He was, I think, the first Dade player to be drafted in a long, long time. So Miami guy, grew up around the team. Spo knows him very, very well. There's a lot of respect in the organization for a guy like Devin Carter. And it's a little hard to gauge his rookie season. I think he started the rookie season with a shoulder injury, because he only ended up playing 36 games last year. Did not play a ton of minutes in his action with the Sacramento Kings. So if you look at his numbers from last year, they're nothing to write home about. He played 36 games, started none of them, averaged 11 minutes, didn't shoot well, just under 4 points, over 2 rebounds, over an assist, over half a steal a game. So you look at it and you're like, that's not that great. But did deal with injury last year. He did play 5 games in the G League for the Stockton Kings, and that in those games averaged 26.6 points, 9 rebounds, over 5 assists, over 2 steals, and a block a game. So pretty impressive numbers in there. He shot about 39% on almost 10 attempts in those 5 games. And, so he lit it up in his G League stints last year. He was a very good shooter in college, impressed there, shot a lot. He shot, 38% from 3 last in college at just 7 attempts in his final season at Providence. So, and he would be the first. He was the first Dade player to be drafted in the first round since Tim Hardaway Jr. So another Heat connection there as well. He was the Big East Player of the Year. If you guys recall, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry would take trips with Anthony Carter to go see Devin Carter. So there was a lot of buzz around Devin Carter last year. And I guess essentially the way you would look at this is, okay, you're using Duncan Robinson's contract. Duncan Robinson, let's just say we know that he's not going to be on the Heat, right? This seems patently obvious. It's sad that the Heat's all-time shooter, his time looks like it's coming to an end, but it seems inevitable that his time is coming to an end with the Miami Heat. So they're going to use that asset for something. What are they going to use it for? They're going to use it for a guy in DeMar DeRozan who could score you a lot of buckets. You give a little sweetener in the young side of things. You give somebody like Jaime Jaquez Jr., who, value, while the Miami Heat are pumping out a lot of Jaime Jaquez content on social media. And, he's visiting Heat camps and doing correspondence things. And obviously he was a very marketable guy after his rookie season. Where does this season go for him, right? Do the Heat believe in Jaime being able to bounce back? We know that he's doing work with Chris Brickley. But do the Heat like the prospects of having a guy who was a first-round pick last year. Maybe they like better than anybody in this draft because you're picking at 20. And, people are saying, like, this is a draft that drops off a little, especially in the 20s. So is there something to the effect of getting a guy who you just feel better about as a prospect? It's more intriguing to me than just getting DeRozan because it's like, all right, you're getting somebody young in the backcourt, 23 years old for most of the season, and won't turn 24 to the playoffs. And I think is probably a player that he likes. I don't love the deal. Just because I still am not infatuated with the Heat getting DeRozan, and I'm a little bit like, all right, so in this case, let me just rewind it. See, if the Heat do a move like this, to me there has to be another move, because in a move like this, so we're going to say the Heat have a team that has a backcourt of DeRozan and Tyler, so there's no real point guard there. Davion's not going to start, or are we not bringing Davion back in this scenario? Because in this case, you still have Wiggins. And so your front court is Bam, Ware, Wiggins on the wing. Your back court is DeMar DeRozan and Tyler Hero. And then so Davion's coming off the bench. Like, I guess it's not the worst case scenario because Davion did a little bit of that last year, but it's just a little strange. It feels a little bit like, is there enough basketball to go around with those two? While I would never dare put DeRozan in the Terry Rozier category. We already saw like Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, kind of a weird fit. So I don't know. Like I think a guy who definitely has been used to being the guy, and yeah, I understand why. To me, I understand why there's a feeling from the organization that, like, all right, well, we need somebody who can be the go-to guy, because Wiggins isn't that. Tyler can do that in the regular season. Can he do it in the playoffs? Not that DeRozan's ever been a playoff succeeder. Like, I think, honestly, one of the things that defines his career, right or wrong, is that he was a great regular season player and his teams never really got it done in the playoffs. True that he was going through the East with prime LeBron, and that a lot of people fell victim to that. So no shame in that game. But the Heat getting somebody young as a intriguing prospect that maybe you feel a little bit like still has more juice to him than Jaime does, and then Jaime gets a fresh start. Maybe it works out better for him in a place like Sacramento. Maybe being on the West Coast feels like it's more comfortable for him. It was probably his best stint last year. Was it Portland, Sacramento, Golden State? I think it was that trio of games. That was probably one of his best runs of the season. So I don't hate it. I like the intrigue of it, but I'm not in love with it. I'm not in love with the move. And it mostly has to do with, I think DeRozan on the Heat's kind of a weird fit. I know he's going to end up on the Heat this year. Like, in my bones, it feels like the Heat aren't going to get Durant, and this ends with DeMar DeRozan on the Miami Heat. There's just been so much noise around it. But to me, I think you do it I think the Heat, you make a move, you get a legend like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's a legendary player, one of the greatest scorers of all time. DeMar DeRozan's gonna probably be in the Hall of Fame and is a really, really good player, but is not on Kevin Durant's level. And I just think that it feels, what it feels like to me? Not to compare it to Terry Rozier, because I just said I wouldn't do it, but I lied. When we got excited about the Rozier deal, and they were like, look at his numbers compared to Dame. And it's like, yeah, but he's not Dame. He's not Damian Lillard, right? Like, and I guess you could, I'm sure in some ways you could say Damian Lillard is the West Coast DeMar DeRozan in some ways for many, many years. Like Steph the foil to Dame, like LeBron was to DeRozan, even though he hasn't been in Toronto now in 7 years. But there's just, Dame still has like the ice cold ending playoff series moments. Like, I don't know. There's just a little bit more of an icon status that goes with Damian Lillard, right or wrong. And we tried doing that with the Terry Rozier thing, and that felt like it blew up in his face, in the Heat fans' face, and it feels like this would too. But getting somebody like Devin Carter, you're like, all right, I'm kind of excited. It feels like the Heat could plug in somebody like that, and he could have a role here, being the backup guard that comes in there, wreaks havoc, can shoot well. We talked about the Heat needing some shooting. You feel a little bit more sure of it than you do maybe any of the draft prospects that are out there. So that part intrigues me a lot more than the DeRozan thing does. But I don't know if it intrigues me enough to want to make the move. Because if the Heat are in a spot where they're not going to get KD, they're not going to get a whale, then yeah, I am not only in the case of, hey, run it back, let your young guys play, figure it out, find if there's any takers for Andrew Wiggins, if you can get any kind of asset for that. Play the holy hell out of Nikola Jovic in a contract year if you don't extend him. Go tall time and be more in that lane than, oh, we have to make a move. That to me is a silly proposition. Don't do that. This would make it more palatable, but I don't know if I like it enough to make the move for Miami. But I don't think that DeRozan Heat buzz is going anywhere anytime soon, especially with the KD stuff still lingering.